I was going to go off of my previous series of videos about the dietary wisdom of the great apes. This will be called More Dietary Wisdom of the Great Apes, and we'll be dealing with psychopathology. Okay, both human and animal psychopathology and the dietary wisdom of the great apes. Okay, so here we go. Ethology. We have to start by explaining what ethology is. Ethology is the scientific study of animal behavior. It usually focuses on behavior under natural conditions, okay? Viewing behavior as an evolutionary adaptation or an adaptive trait. Behaviorism as a term also describes the scientific and objective study of animal behavior, usually referring to measured responses to stimuli or trained behavioral responses in a laboratory context. That's a little different than ethology. Throughout history, different naturalists have studied aspects of animal behavior. Ethology has its scientific roots in the work of Charles Darwin and of the American and German ornithologists of the late 19th century and early 20th century, including Charles O. Whitman, Oscar Heinroth, and Wallace Craig. The modern discipline of ethology is generally considered to have begun during the 1930s with the work of Dutch biologist Nicholas Tinbergen and Austrian biologists Konrad Lorenz and Karl von Frisch. Now, Konrad Lorenz is considered to be the father of ethology, so keep that in mind when you're learning about ethology. He is a very important person in ethology. He's the one that discovered imprinting, which is the fact that baby birds, particularly ducks, when they hatch, whatever they see when they hatch, they believe is their mom. So, ethology combines laboratory and field science with strong relation to other disciplines such as neuroanatomy, ecology, and evolutionary biology. Ethologists typically show interest in a behavior process rather than in a particular animal group, and often study one type of behavior, such as aggression, in a number of unrelated species. There's a book called On Aggression by ethologist Konrad Zacharias Lorenz, which should be worth reading for most people. Ethology is a rapidly growing field since the dawn of the 21st century, but that's enough of that. Let me move on here. So what is human ethology? Human ethology is the study of human behavior. Ethology as a discipline is generally thought of as a subcategory of biology, though psychological theories have been developed based on ethological ideas. Sociobiology, evolutionary psychology, attachment theory, and theories about human universals such as gender differences, incest avoidance, mourning, hierarchy, and pursuit of possession. The bridging between biological sciences and social sciences creates an understanding of human ethology. The International Society for Human Ethology is dedicated to advancing the study and understanding of human ethology. Moving on. What is animal psychopathology? Okay, so animal psychopathology is the study of mental or behavioral disorders in non-human animals. Historically, there has been an anthropocentric tendency to emphasize the study of animal psychopathologies as models for human mental illness, but animal psychopathologies can, from an evolutionary point of view, be more properly regarded as non-adaptive behaviors due to some sort of cognitive disability, emotional impairment, or distress. This article provides a non-exhaustive list of animal psychopathologies. Now, what you're going to see here, what the problem is, I'm going to explain why human issues usually are non-adaptive behaviors due to some sort of emotional impairment or distress. Okay? Eating disorders. Animals in the wild appear to be relatively free from eating disorders, although their body composition fluctuates depending on seasonal and reproductive cycles. However, domesticated animals, including farm, laboratory, and pet animals, are prone to disorders. Evolutionary fitness drives feeding behavior in the wild. The expectation is that farm animals also display this behavior, but questions arise if the same principles apply to laboratory and pet animals. Activity anorexia. This has to do with animals showing far too much exercise and avoiding food. Sow syndrome is a behavior observed in unstalled sows. Now, if you've ever worked in or have been in a mental institution or a prison, think about this. This is also how people in a environment like this behave. Okay. So, similar to so they experience emaciation, hypothermia, and deprived appetite, restlessness, and hyperactivity. The syndrome may mainly be related to social and environmental stressors. Stress in stalled sows is often perceived as a consequence of the restraint of animals that happens in intensive productive units. Similar effects have also been observed in dense populations of beetles, blah, blah, blah. Okay, pica. Pica is an ingestion of non-nutritive substances. Rats are unable to vomit when they ingest a substance that is harmful. Thus, pica in rats is analogous to vomiting in other species. Cats can also display pica behavior in their environments. Okay, this is more about behavioral disorders are difficult to study in animal models because it is difficult to know what animals are thinking because animals can't talk. Can a monkey effectively communicate that he is sad? Obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, what's funny is, think about that for a second now. A lot of the research done on human behavior, such as that done by Charles Rivers Laboratory that does psychiatric research, is done on animals, including non-human primates. If you go back to my video on Charles Rivers Laboratory and the guy that sits on the board of Lenape Valley Foundation, they baked to death a number of monkeys. But think about that. Can a monkey effectively communicate that he's sad? But yet that's who they're doing all the research on. Obsessive compulsive disorder. However, behavioral observation is what's important. Obsessive compulsive disorder in animals, ritualized stereotyped behavior, the evolutionary basis. Some researchers believe that disadvantageous obsessive compulsive behaviors, and this is important to understand, some researchers believe that disadvantageous obsessive compulsive behaviors can be thought of as a normally beneficial process gone too far. Genetic factors. Canine compulsions are more common in some breeds. That's true with other groups of animals too that I'm not going to mention. Animal models. Animals exhibiting obsessive compulsive behaviors that resemble OCD in humans have been used as a tool in elucidating possible genetic influences, yada yada yada. Lever pressing rats. This is about to get more dopamine, they were stimulating their brains. Estrogen deficiency in male mice. And this goes about the hormonal imbalances. This all applies to people too. I don't think people understand that there is a physiological reason for a lot of issues. Treatment with pharmaceuticals. Okay. I'm going to move on here. Now, anybody that has ever been in an inpatient facility or a prison or any small environment for extended periods of time, I guarantee you has experienced zoochosis, but they're not calling it zoochosis. So, what is zoochosis? Zoochosis is a word used to explain the stereotypical behavior of animals in captivity. The stereotypic behavior is described as an invariant repetitive behavior pattern with no apparent goal or function. Animals in zoos and other forms of captivity suffer from stress and depression and display unusual behaviors. These habits are not displayed by animals roaming in the wild, which means that confinement has detrimental effects on the health of animals and people. The condition was identified by Bill Travers in 1992. Zoochosis is displayed through behavioral disorders such as circling, pacing, bar biting, excessive grooming, addiction, and self-harm. Okay, think about that. Okay, think about people, mental health patients, for example, in these environments where they're being confined for long periods of time, sometimes a whole life. Okay, circling, pacing, bar biting, excessive grooming, addiction, and self-harm. Okay, causes of zoochosis. Animals develop zoochotic behaviors when they are removed from their natural environments. For example, elephants found in roadside zoos and those used in the circus mostly suffer from zoochosis. The elephants are often chained or forced to live on concrete floors, which are unnatural environments for them. Caging animals also leads them to suffer with mental illnesses. It explains why caged monkeys behave unusually compared to free monkeys in the wild. The other major cause of zoochosis is when animals are separated from their families. And people should go back to reading Maslow. Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs does very good at explaining this. Gorillas are a good example of social animals that when separated from their families, they develop unusual habits like incessant sobbing. Additionally, now think about that. Think about again, people in mental hospitals. So gorillas are good examples of social animals, like people, that when separated from their families, they develop unusual habits like incessant sobbing. Manifestation of zoochosis. Zoochotic animals mostly display certain repetitive behaviors. Elephants, bears, gorillas, and tigers pace back and forth when placed in confinement. Other animals repetitively brush their skin, leading to loss of their hair. This is common in mental hospitals with the habitual brushing of the hair and brushing of the teeth. Remedies for zoochosis, like over and over again. Remedies for zoochosis. Skin picking is another problem that develops in people in those situations. Remedies for zoochosis. Zoos usually use several remedies to treat zoochosis in animals. One of the solutions to the ailing animals is providing toys as a distraction. The other remedy is to restructure the confinements in such a way in which the animals live to make the place more suitable for the animals. Zoochotic animals are also fed meals that take long to ingest to distract them from harmful behavior. The most popular method used to treat zoochotic animals is using antipsychotic drugs, but they're psychotic drugs. They actually named them properly. This method is preferred because it is cheap and effective compared to other treatments. It's cheap. It's probably not particularly effective. If the animal is not disruptive or the animal is not displaying the behaviors, it does not mean the animal is not experiencing emotional distress on the inside is the problem. Prevention of zoochosis. Animals can be protected from zoochosis through the implementation of animal-focused laws. Okay, but this is the thing. Mental health patients probably need laws to protect them too. Moving on. This is from PETA. I'm not a particular fan of PETA, but I want to show this to you anyway. These are 9 types of animals driven insane. Elephants, this is about zoochosis. Elephants, monkeys, bears, cockatoos, coyotes, orcas, okay? So this dude is going to explain what he says nutritional psychiatry is, and it's important because I'm going to go deep into this in my next bunch of videos here, but it's important that you understand this, and this is a psychiatrist explaining what he deems to be nutritional psychiatry. Now, I would say that nutritional psychiatry is this, plus the use of orthomolecular medicine to correct any deficiencies or to give the proper nutrients in levels necessary to for the biochemical individuality of the person. But let's hear what this psychiatrist says that nutritional psychiatry is. I'm going to deep dive into this in my next couple videos.
Nutritional psychiatry is really thinking that all the data right now that's really strong is about augmenting treatment. It's kind of what we do in my clinic, the Brain Food Clinic. It's also really in my new book, Eat to Beat Depression and Anxiety, kind of how I try and talk about it, that when you think about beating depression and anxiety, there are lots and lots of things when you see someone do that they bring to the table. You know, even if people have a response to medications, or even if really psychotherapy helps them, when really people kind of get into full remission from an illness, they're often marshaling a lot of different aspects of their life. You know, their sleep hygiene's improving, their relationships usually are improving, and nutrition is kind of one really important aspect of that. And so the data's come out, it's been really interesting. It started out with correlational data showing that populations that eat a dietary pattern that's more Mediterranean style, or another way to put that is just what's called a traditional dietary pattern. So if it's a Japanese diet or a Norwegian diet, just diets that are made of more whole, unprocessed foods, folks tend to get less depression and less anxiety.
Let's hear this again.
You know, part of the thing about nutritional psychiatry is really thinking that all the data right now that's really strong is about augmenting treatment. It's kind of what we do in my clinic, the Brain Food Clinic. It's also really in my new book, Eat to Beat Depression and Anxiety, kind of how I try and talk about it, that when you think about beating depression and anxiety, there are lots and lots of things when you see someone do that they bring to the table. You know, even if people have a response to medications, or even if really psychotherapy helps them, when really people kind of get into full remission from an illness, they're often marshaling a lot of different aspects of their life. You know, their sleep hygiene's improving, their relationships usually are improving, and nutrition is kind of one really important aspect of that. And so the data's come out, it's been really interesting. It started out with correlational data showing that populations that eat a dietary pattern that's more Mediterranean style, or another way to put that is just what's called a traditional dietary pattern. So if it's a Japanese diet or a Norwegian diet, just diets that are made of more whole, unprocessed foods, folks tend to get less depression and less anxiety.
And that's all for this video. I'm going to make more videos on more dietary wisdom of the great apes. And that's all for this video. I'll make more. Probably I'll make another one today.